Afternoon and welcome to CSE Tech Tuesday, Best of Winter. Thank you, James, for arranging this, and to everyone online who have joined us. Since we launched Tech Tuesday back in July with a focus on private technology with traction, we have had some outstanding companies from Canada, the US, and Israel, and today we have the best three from Winter. Our objective in running Tech Tuesdays is twofold. First, to help technology companies with increasing traction to gain relevant visibility. And second, to help capital markets players by introducing interesting companies, ones that have potential, focusing on whether the technology will have commercial traction and why, and also providing new knowledge of what is happening in innovation. For you as attendees, we do ask that you share ideas and feedback with our presenters, leads, possibly funding after due diligence, referral of someone with unique applicable expertise, or maybe even a potential strategic relationship. We will ask them later to put their contact information in the chat board, and you will have an opportunity after the formal proceedings to go into the lounge and click at a table and sit down with them. So we'd encourage you to do that. With respect, we might refrain from giving management advice unless we are truly experts in the company's particular field, and don't treat our presenting companies as marketing targets for services. And a note on our question moderators. We bring excellent people who could be useful to you as the attendees, when you need to ramp things up at a company, turn a business company around, or to do due diligence on a company's business potential and execution. And today's question moderator is no exception, Ernest Daddy, so we're pleased to have him as well. So note our disclaimer. These presentations are for information only and are not a solicitation to make an investment in either shares or debt or to buy or sell stock. CSE and Mark Francis as session host, i.e. yours truly, make no representation about any of these companies. In particular, note my conflict as I am an investor in Winterhawk well abandonment and have been helping them. If you are interested in the investor pitch, please connect with the companies directly in order to get detailed information. Each company will have a 7-minute presentation with their PowerPoint. When you see my face appear, the company has 15 seconds to wrap up. After all companies have presented, we'll move to the Q&A. Once again, we will have an excellent question moderator. When the program is over, do join us in the lounge and then click to sit at a table in order to chat with our presenters or with one another. So before we get to the presenters today, first honorable mention for Netramark, Joseph Geraci, who was also selected for Best of Winter, but we were unable to fit him in, and we will do something for Joseph Geraci at Netramark, a very interesting company using machine learning on data sets of medical data. You are welcome to check out his presentation as well back in February. So today we have as presenters David Yeager, CEO, Winterhawk Well Abandonment, Liz O'Connell, President of Arolytics, and Vicky Farrar, CEO of Lightline Medical. So let's start with David, oil service executive, entrepreneur, energy policy analyst, consultant, author of From Miracle to Menace, and a writer in energynow.ca. Since 1970, he has worked in multiple oil service sector segments, was a founder, senior officer, and director of 3 successful TSX-listed oil service companies, served a stint as chairman of the Petroleum Services Association of Canada, and then from 2012 to 2016 was national leader of the oilfield services for MNP LLP. Today, David consults as an executive finance and management advisor to oil service companies as well as other entities, and continues to be active in business journalism and energy policy analysis, to which he's been a contributor since 1979. David, yours.
Did I do this? Did I get my screen up there? Have I done this? Can you see my screen? Oh, I'm sorry. Screen share. Did this work? Hello? Okay. I guess this is working, or somebody will tell me otherwise. I'm going to have to speak quickly here. Our tool is designed to stop well abandonment or leaking gas wells. It is a bigger problem than anybody knows. There's 3 million gas wells all over the world, and they all leak to some degree. It is a bigger problem that the industry has been grappling with for some time, and Winterhawk has a novel new solution. The basic business model is we're a technology development company, and we are not. We don't want to go into the oil service business per se. That's a mortar and bricks business. The worldwide oil service industry is plenty overbuilt with the downturn of vacillations in the business. So we've decided not to do the usual red shops and all that stuff. Our basically we invent, patent, engineer, design, prototype, partner, and license. The wellbore methane emission challenge is this is probably one of the least understood areas of leakage. It's just a lot of associated gas with gas production. I love this picture out of the Bakken in the early days of the Bakken. They've got this aerial photos at night, where here's Chicago, here's Minneapolis, here's flaring solution gas in the Bakken. But the wellbore is weak as well. A well is drilled in the ground with steel, lined with cement, but unfortunately over time we get something called gas migration or vent flow, where the cement deteriorates over time. The methane leaks into the atmosphere, pure methane. And there are, according to the Alberta Energy Regulator, there's something like 10,000 leakers in Alberta, and there are literally hundreds of thousands of these all over the world. Here's a cross-section from the SPE, professional engineers. They have petroleum engineers. They've built a sample of what cement looks like after years in the ground, and they've introduced some foam in the bottom to show you how much this could leak. Of course, the trouble with this type of gas leak is the supply is unlimited. Our method is to, rather than re-cement, is to expand the casing, thereby shrinking the surface area between the wellbore. Here's the gas path up the outside of the casing, perhaps through the cement along the reservoir. Our casing expansion technology goes in, installs these dents down in the well, squeezes the annulus shut, compresses the cement, and reseals the casing. Here's a cross-section of a surface sample. We have built a jig here, 30-inch sonotube with a combination of cement and road sand, which actually duplicates several producing formations in Western Canada. We have stuck a piece of pipe in there. We've cemented it using the same type of casing you would use in a wellbore. And you can see the net result is the expansion makes the casing larger and compresses the cement on the outside. Here's the mathematics on a typical well in Alberta, where you would have, say, a 223 millimeter well with 177.8 millimeter casing. The area is this with no expansion. If we expand the pipe by 3.2 millimeters, so only 3.2%, the mathematics are we shrink the annulus by 12.9%, and we on a well where we shrink the well expand the casing by 7%, we shrink the annulus by 26%. So it's impossible for the gas to leak past this area. Here's the setting tool. Here's the business end of it. There's this little rubber element we run into the well. It's a giant hydraulic ram. It's 23 feet long. We have a series of pistons where we take 4,000 psi on the top. We come out with 440,000 pounds of pull out the bottom end. Here is the same piece of casing before and after. Here's the expansion element before, after, and here's what that casing looked like after 30 seconds of casing expansion. Here's what's called a caliper log, where you run an instrument into the well, where we would go in and run a caliper log of the well. After expansion, we've seen in this particular case, we've taken 7-inch casing up to 7.5 inches, or expanded the casing up to 9 to 11 millimeters. Here's a well that was done just outside of Edmonton just before Christmas. In this case, we put the crimps upside in the well. This was an old well. It was very difficult to solve. It had a 69-year-old pipe in it. And so in this particular case, the well was bubbling away. The regulator insists it be shut off. Post-expansion, this thing quit leaking. It hasn't leaked a bubble since in the past 4 months. I'm talking bubbles. This is granular. The market itself, most of the casing in Alberta is 4.5 casing. The next largest is 5.5. We are currently in 7-inch casing. This is the smallest market. So based on our field trials and success in the 7-inch market, we're now funding the development of what we call a slim hole tool. Slim hole is tools for 4.5 and 5.5 casing. We have a shop or a press where we we can simulate the downhole conditions in a well. So here's a piece of 5.5 pipe. So use essentially the same setting mechanism and rubbers as we use in the 7-inch tool. We were able to deform. Surface 5.5 casing. The materially larger market. This is the largest single market in the United States. Literally hundreds of thousands of wells, and the new Biden administration has recently put forth a bill in the House of Representatives for $8 billion stimulus program to get after this. The economics of the tool itself are really excellent. The tool itself, because of its simplicity, only costs $40,000 to build approximately. We can get $9,000 per tool with a set aside of 20% for margin. The gross profit is $7,200, and so the days to recovery on the tool itself is 5.6 runs. This is extremely profitable. So this, because of the novelty of it, and it's about 10% of the cost of existing methods, what we can do here is there's lots of money to spread around in licensing, distributors, and so on. So just to wrap up, it's a big problem. There's 10,000 leakers in Alberta, many more. 84% of the test runs we did 49 expansions, 41 yield measurable ductility, and we know why it didn't work in the other 8. And we are, again, if somebody's interested in following this, but it's what they call in the oil service industry, they call a disruptive technology, and we're pretty enthusiastic about our future. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, David. And I'm jumping in for Mark because his internet completely died on him. So I'm James Black. I'm with the CSE. And I get the pleasure of introducing Liz O'Connell, who is the president and co-founder of Arolytics, an emissions software company that tracks emissions performance for energy companies and leverages data to optimize reduction opportunities. Prior to her current role, Liz worked for several years as an emissions scientist, where she spent time in the field analyzing emissions from thousands of wells and facilities across Alberta. She has authored multiple research articles on the topic of methane emissions from the oil and gas sector. Liz holds a BSc, or a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science, St. Francis Xavier University. Liz, it's all yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction. And speaking of methane emissions, I think this is a great segue into our presentation. So thanks, David, for kind of introducing that pain point and that topic a little bit. Okay, so as mentioned, my name is Liz O'Connell. I'm the president and a co-founder of Arolytics, and I will be providing an overview of our company. So Arolytics is an emissions software and data analytics company that formed in 2018 with offices in Calgary and Halifax. Our vision is to provide a leading global enterprise software to optimize emissions-related decisions, management, and disclosure, similar to a QuickBooks for emissions for the oil and gas sector. Sorry about that. So what's our motive behind this? We've all seen headlines like the one shown here. Energy companies are facing rapidly increasing pressure to operate in an environmentally responsible manner. Stakeholders globally are now prioritizing what we call environmental, social, and governance, or ESG. It's time for industry to respond accordingly because this is a problem they can no longer afford to avoid. To address this issue in Canada, governments have set a 45% emission reduction target. Managing enterprise-level emissions is complex. There's a lot of different multifaceted factors, as you can see here, such as regulatory and ESG pressures. There's new technologies sprouting up, a lot of innovation in the space, which leads to further data integration issues. And it's a difficult business environment right now with low commodity prices driving the need for low-cost, innovative solutions. And just for a little bit of context around methane emissions, methane is a colorless and odorless gas. It's not like detecting a visual oil leak from a pipeline. This is a gas that's very difficult to detect, and that alone has its own challenges when you're dealing with gases of that nature. So at Arolytics, we are specialists in optimizing emissions management for efficiency, reductions, and cost. To address the complexity shown on the previous slides, we built a software platform to streamline the workflow related to these activities. And that's AeroVis, a tool that seamlessly tracks, manages, and discloses greenhouse gas emissions. One of our main objectives is to help companies get more value out of the field data they're collecting and to leverage that to provide strategic business intelligence. The 3 key differentiators shown here help with that. First is our proprietary optimization feature, which has enabled companies to save up to an estimated 40% on their emission measurement costs. And I'll touch on that in the next slide. Next are our emission compliance automation and ESG analytics that enable producers to track progress on internal emissions targets and reliably disclose data. So diving deeper into the modeling and that optimization pieces I just touched on, in recent years, there's been a ton of innovation around emissions detection technologies for the oil and gas sector. There's trucks, planes, drones, handheld sensors, satellites, as you can see on the slide. But understanding how we optimize leak detection costs and compliance, considering all of these new technologies, is a complex problem. And that's what our emissions modeling optimization feature addresses. Now, with new obligations around emission measurement, a tsunami of data is approaching. We've developed a way of integrating data flows originating from numerous technologies, such as the one just shown on the previous slide, and disparate data sources across a company. Being prepared to manage data in this manner and being agnostic to any technology will be a critical competitive advantage as companies begin to collect more data. AeroViz addresses the entire emissions management continuum in a central accounting system, linking granular level field data to management level decision making. We've recently closed our seed financing round and will be scaling our development team in the coming months. We're investing heavily into R&D right now, and by Q4 of this year, we'll be releasing a version with ESG analytics capability. Despite a struggling oil and gas industry, emissions mitigation has never been so relevant. Over the last half a year, Canadian governments have committed over $1 billion in funding programs to reduce emissions from the oil and gas industry. And regardless of the regulations, industry is taking initiative to set their own ambitious reduction targets, shown here. I know it's small on the slide, but those are some of the net zero or other emissions targets that industry has taken the initiative to set. With over 1.3 million wells and facilities across North America alone, emissions management is a global market opportunity. The 200 energy-related methane policies worldwide create a strong regulatory market driver. But it doesn't stop at oil and gas. Additional emitting industries such as fossil fuel power generation pose tremendous market opportunities for our product. In 2020, we finalized our version 1 and are now commercial. We've grown our team to 8, have tripled our client base in the past year, including a handful of Canada's largest oil and gas producers. In January, we closed our seed financing round and are currently scaling our team by adding 5 new employees spread across business development and software. We've also graduated from a machine intelligence program where our development team is working to incorporate predictive analytics into our platform. And in late fall of last year, Arolytics was the Calgary-based winner of Startup TNT's Investment Summit. And what are our clients saying? A few months ago at Canada's largest oil and gas methane conference, one of our clients from CNRL said during their presentation that the Arolytics modeling software was crucial in the development and approval of their program. And finally, just to cap it off, who is behind it all? Our founding team formed out of Canada's largest academic emissions lab, where we spent multiple years researching emissions across thousands of wells and facilities and collaborating with industry really closely to understand our pain points. Not shown here are incredible mentors whose expertise expands across the oil and gas, ESG, and software space. So that's all. Thank you so much to CSE, and I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards. And feel free to get in touch at the contact information shown there. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Liz. And taking us home is Vicky Farrar, CEO of Lightline Medical, who has over 40 years as an attorney representing companies in the medical device and pharmaceutical fields, with more than 25 years in strategic IP planning and working in local startup companies. In 2008, she founded Catheter Connections, Inc., an infection control company which changed the standard of care for infusion therapy and was successfully sold to Merit Medical Systems, Inc., a public company, in 2017. And which then invested in Lightline. Prior to Catheter Connections, Vicky held senior executive positions in several life science startups. She considers Lightline Medical the most exciting of all her companies because it has the potential for multiple exits. That's all you.
Okay. Lightline Medical is using visible light to prevent catheter-associated infections. I have one question for everybody here. Are you afraid to go to the hospital? You should be. Hospital-acquired infections is a huge international problem. In the US alone, annual cost $20 billion, deaths 100,000. Most of these are called never events. They should never happen, and therefore they're never going to be reimbursed. On top of the lack of reimbursement, however, are staggering Medicare penalties in the hundreds of millions of dollars. These superbugs, they thrive in and on catheters. So why can't the world fix the problem? Chart on the right. As antibiotic-resistant organisms are on the rise, the drugs to combat them are on the decline. We have the solution. It's called the light line phototherapy system. Again, we're using visible light. That's light the human eye can see, 405 nanometer light. Significantly, it's not UV light. UV light degrades catheter materials and is toxic to human tissue. In addition, visible light has no antibiotic-resistant issues. The technology consists of two components, a reusable power source here, connected to an off-the-shelf catheter. Inside the off-the-shelf catheter is a fiber optic that we etch. Where it's etched, it's going to emit that visible light inside and outside the catheter, disinfecting it and sterilizing it, and thereby preventing infections. This will be the first antimicrobial for all infections, dialysis, urinary, vascular, and respiratory. So how do we know we can do it? We've all done it before. As you learned, I sold my last company to Merit Medical. Everybody on this slide has had exits and relationships with our potential acquirers. I want to point out Kelly Powers, who recently retired from C.R. Bard and Bard Access. He has literally put hundreds of products on the market with revenues exceeding $10 billion. This is a snapshot of where we are. We have completed in vitro and in vivo studies. We have peer-reviewed publications. We have a robust patent portfolio, 8 issued patents, 14 pending, but also we have written freedom to operate opinions. We have 1 exclusive distribution agreement already with Medline Industries. That's the largest private distributor in North America, but that's only for 3 years in the urinary field, so we can do lots of other deals. We've had non-dilutive funding, most recently American Medical Association, but also NASA, National Science Foundation, and others. We've raised $8.6 million to date. Notable investors you see there. We know the device works. We have successfully killed the microorganisms that cause these infections. While we have lots of in vitro data, I'm going right to the pig study. We put Foley catheters in pigs, injected infectious amounts of bacteria, and here's what you see on necropsy. On the left, no light, that's an infection. On the right, light treated, no infection. But then we took the exterior surfaces of those catheters and examined them. On the left, literally where there's no light, that's a raging infection in progress. Light treated, no bacteria, no biofilm. First, we're putting our technology in a peritoneal dialysis catheter for several reasons. There's a huge clinical need. It is generally understood worldwide that peritoneal dialysis done in the home is better for the patient's quality of life and clinically than hemodialysis done in the clinic several hours a day, several times a week. Then how come in the United States, 89% of the population is on hemodialysis? In Canada, 82% is on hemodialysis. How come? They're scared to death of getting an infection, and we can fix that. But the second reason this is our first product is because we're putting the fiber optic in a portion of the catheter that is outside the body. As a result of it not touching human tissue, we need no animal and no clinical studies, so it's a straightforward 510K pathway. It's a huge market. There are 127 million PD patient days a year globally. We're using a partnership distribution model, and here's how. Example. A Fresenius or a Baxter, we've estimated, can get 2% of that market in the first year, or $38 million, and 6 years later, approximately 30% or over $500 million. But next is the Holy Grail. Our technology in a urinary catheter to prevent catheter-associated urinary tract infections. That is the most common infection in the entire world. Rates haven't changed in decades. It's not reimbursed. It's expensive. This too is a 510K, but it's a de novo 510K. We need animal and clinical trials. That's why it's product number 2, not product number 1. This too is a huge market, but here we have our exclusive distribution partner, Medline. And here we did a bottom-up analysis. We estimated that 35 of Medline's 50 infectious disease sales reps could convert 3 hospitals per quarter per rep year 1, 5 hospitals per quarter per rep by year 6. That equates in year 1 to approximately $38 million, and year 6 over $300 million in the US alone. Competition. Peritoneal dialysis, there is none. Sterile technique is the standard of care, but we know it doesn't work. In the urinary field, we have competition. It's barred silver-coated catheters and others antimicrobial catheters, but we know, again, they don't work. Lightline is the only one using visible light inside a body cavity. This is an $11 billion target market, 6 years from launch. We estimate we'll get approximately $1 billion in revenue. But here's what I want to emphasize. Why would anybody buy our product? It's because we have a strong value proposition for everyone. The patient doesn't get an infection, the payer saves money, and the provider and hospital don't get penalized, and they save their reputation because these are publicly reported. Now, the point of this slide is not that these are the entities that are going to buy us. It's that we have at least 8 potential deals. We have 4 fields of use, and for each of those fields of use, we could do a deal in the US or a deal internationally. Example. Fresenius is a dialysis company. They may only want dialysis, but Teleflex may want everything, and Bard and Merit may just want pieces. So to recap, we're using visible light, not UV light. We have an experienced team. We have manufacturing and commercialization expertise, especially with our lead investor. We have a robust patent portfolio. We have both strategic investment and interest, and we've conceived our future products. In ending, I want to say this. This is what the CDC said recently. We need to adopt aggressive strategies that keep the germs away and infections from occurring in the first place. And that's exactly what Lightline Medical is doing. Thank you.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, let's move on to the Q&A and bring out, all our presenters are here, so we're ready to go. Let me introduce our Q&A moderator, Ernest Daddy. Now, Ernest, I have a huge list of accomplishments here with your name attached to it. So I'll just do the basic intro, which is that you're an experienced senior executive who grows businesses to become blue chip companies. That's the general what you do. For more than 30 years, Ernest has successfully nurtured business ideas from research to product development, commercialization, manufacturing, and sales. He has done so through his core competencies in strategic marketing, collaboration, and innovation in technology and business thinking. Ernest has also strategically targeted new markets, product applications, and growth opportunities with strong results. Ernest, please join me on stage here, and let's have a Q&A.
Thank you, James, and thank you, Mark, and thank you all the presenters. This is a wonderful opportunity to learn about technology that is going to make an impact in our Canadian economy, but beyond the boundaries of Canada as well. So I have a few questions to ask, and my very first question to Vicky, David, and then Liz in that order. What is one mistake that you've made and pivoted around to progress with your venture?
Well, I won't admit it was a mistake, but here's what we underestimated how quickly our light needed to kill bacteria for the peritoneal dialysis space. But after doing research and getting clinician and patient feedback, we realized that we needed to kill quicker. So we can kill bacteria in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but fungus took longer, likely an hour. So what we did, we simply changed our light engine and doubled our power. And now we can kill all microbes quickly for peritoneal dialysis.
Thank you, Liz. Now, David?
There's 2 parts of the oil industry. One is called exploration and production. These are the people that own the holes that ground and drill the well. And then there's the oil service sector, which is really this giant supply base. And the big mistake that I took over this company from my brother-in-law, who's an inventor, but I've done this before with other technologies. But the biggest mistake we as a species make in the service business is the degree to which the owners of the wellbores understand their assets. And in this particular case, the main objective of the oil and gas industry is to produce as much oil and gas up the inside of the pipe as possible. And the idea it could leak on the outside has always been a challenge, but never been an issue. It's been made an issue. So the biggest mistake we made was thinking that the people that understand what's really going on the outside of the pipe, in the space between the steel casing and the rocks. And what I've learned the hard way on the job is that this is really a great unknown, and the amount of research that's been done globally in the behavior of the outside of your wellbore after primary cementing until its maturity, it needs a lot of work to be done. So we've had to become experts on a side of the business where we're not traditionally engaged. And so we thought our customers knew what they were doing. That would be our biggest mistake, but we'll help them.
Thank you, Dave. Sorry, I called Vicky Liz. Now Liz. Sorry.
All good. I'm kind of with Vicky. I'm not sure if the word mistake is the right one, but for us, it's more just a constant kind of learning, pivoting, and having that agile mindset to kind of tweak your product based on customer feedback. And when I reflect back on what our product first looked like when we first started having those initial conversations of just ideas on a PowerPoint, it is completely different to where we are today. And so that whole process has just been this kind of constant iterative process of tweaking feedback and really understanding what is a need to have versus a nice to have. Because for our target market right now, the oil and gas sector, nice to haves often don't cut it. You really need to have that need to have product. And so that took some time, really getting a lot of feedback from different types of customers within the upstream oil and gas sector for us to kind of pivot and tweak and really make sure our functionality was addressing that need to have value.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you for your answers. Very interesting insight. My second question to Liz, to start with Liz this time. Who has equity in your business, and how much equity, and what are the terms for each stakeholder investment? Feel free to comment on these unless there is something that's very confidential that you don't want to share at this point. I'm also flexible to not to get the answer for that.
No, absolutely. I'll just provide kind of a high-level overview. So our company was founded by 3 people, myself and 2 others, one being a professor out of St. FX University on the East Coast and another master's student. And we all have a lot of background, working in the same research group together. And so we are the majority shareholders to date. And as I mentioned in my presentation, we did raise our first seed financing round earlier this year. So we did bring on some more early stage equity financiers as well this year. And so they would have a minority stake together.
Thank you. Same question to David.
This is a classic R&D startup, one of the the oil industry itself has been in various degrees of disrepair since 2014 because of oil prices and gas prices. And just when you thought we fixed up that, along came COVID. So the likely people to sponsor R&D are the wellbore owners themselves. And they have been increasingly challenged by a number of factors in different directions: pipelines, carbon taxes, investor uncertainty. So we've been funded exclusively by high net worth individuals that think that we know what we're doing. We have a significant equity investor. We have a service partner, a company called Tier 1 Energy Solutions out of Edmonton, is backed by Intervale Capital out of Houston. And they're in the tool business and the wireline business. They've been a tremendous help. They're our operating partner. We're able to be that R&D company only because we have a delivery mechanism. And so Tier 1, from an institutional investor, they own nearly 20% of the company, and that they could be part of our future exit strategy. But for the most part, it's just been accredited investors, close friends, and business associates.
And to Vicky, same question to share some thoughts.
Okay. Our company was founded by undergraduates in a $200 bench to bedside competition, so there's a fair amount of common stock that they have. Virtually all of the other stock is preferred stock. It's mostly accredited investors. Our lead investor has about 16%. He's a family office that owned a manufacturing company, so the expertise is really very significant. Merit Medical owns around 5%, and the rest are literally individuals. We most recently closed a Series A at an $18 million pre, $21.5 million post money valuation.
Thank you, Vicky. My third question is really looking into how you are connecting with customers. So to David, then to Liz, and then finally to Vicky. Do you, David, have a letter of intent from potential customers to buy your technology solution?
Oh, good, no. No. The joke in the oil business is, and I think Lisa may speak to this, what we do in the oil service business is we attempt to make oil companies rich with their own money. And for the most part, they'll have very little part of it until you really hit that narrow slot where they need it. And so I've been in the oil service business all my life. Tier 1 has fantastic relationships. But more importantly, in Alberta, there's actually a database among the Alberta Energy Regulator that has a list of all the leakers. You're supposed to monitor your surface casing vent flow and register it. So there's actually a database of all the leaking wells. So we certainly know who owns them. The big challenge in these times has been trying to make, of all the challenges the companies face, is trying to make this particular issue they have to deal with, get it somewhere near the top of the priority list. So we got the tool working, and we got the company funded. We were ready to go to the test wells, and along came COVID. So for the past year, most of our clients have spent most of their time trying to be around to a year. They tried to survive the year. You have to understand what happens when your primary product goes negative. They had balance sheet issues and cash flow crunches that were previously unimaginable. So we were in a very, very difficult market. It's been that way for some time. That said, the ESG methane emission that Lisa speaks of so eloquently is real. We have a solution. The lights are coming back on with commodity prices, and we are strategically targeting the wells the companies we know that have the leakers, and asking them if we'd like us to help them, if they'd like us to help them.
Thank you, David. Now, same question to Liz.
Yeah, I think as David mentioned, LOIs, they're not our primary focus right now. Ultimately, LOIs are great to show demand when you're raising, but they don't really stand up. It's not a structured PO, which really has value. And so that's what we're chasing. For our software, we're at the pilot phase. We're getting, we're currently piloting with some of Canada's largest oil and gas producers. And so LOIs are great, but ultimately we're chasing after those kind of early adopter pilot agreements and contracts.
Thank you. And the same question to Vicky, lastly.
Okay, so we have better than a letter of intent. We have an exclusive distribution agreement with Medline Industries, who I mentioned is the largest private distributor in North America. That is in the urinary field only 3 years, but they have minimum volume requirements and minimum clinical trials that they have to get us into, and they have also pre-launch responsibilities.
Thank you. That's a very good amount of information to know where you guys are making progress. Now, my fourth question is to Vicky this time to start, and then David, and then to Liz. Can you share maybe 2 series of events that, when completed, makes the venture more likely to succeed in any geographic location? Obviously, the medical industry covers the entire planet. So what are you going to be doing in those 2 series of events to really make a success of the venture globally?
Okay, so it really is all of the steps that we're required to take in order to get FDA clearance in the United States. So there's way more than 2 series of events, but everything we need to do to get 510K clearance here will assure us that we have a much easier and quicker path to market in the rest of the world. Example, Canada, China, Japan, in Europe.
Okay, thank you. So, question to David.
We have to shut off gas. We've done one successful gas shut off where it quit leaking. However, that was in 7-inch casing. The trouble with the assets we're working on, it must be nice to. The anatomy of humans for Vicky is pretty well the same all over the world. The physics of oil and gas wells change all over the world. They're all different. They're all of different pipe sizes and so on. So this is why we started out in one size pipe, which is 7-inch casing. Then we have to go to 5.5-inch casing. And so what we really have to do is demonstrate that the thing works. But we're actually laying low right now. I mean, I'm doing a little bit of this, but we're not sort of thumping the tub in the industry. Because it is a global problem. We've had inquiries from all over the world. There are places where the IP is not as secure as places like this, but we're anticipating success. I've worked with a lot of oil tool inventors and entrepreneurs. I didn't talk about my CV, but I've actually done this for many years. And a lot of people in the startup page, everything can anticipate failure, or everything is geared to failure, but you also have to anticipate success. So we're kind of sneaking around right now, just doing our thing, trying to keep the company capitalized in events like this, and shutting off gas one by one. But at some point, what we're hoping is all heck's going to break loose, and at that stage, we will license partner, and we will find we're confident that we know the likely global providers of this, and they won't have to copy it because we're going to make it available to them. That's why I took the time early in the presentation to describe the business model, which is we're an R&D and an engineering company, not a delivery company. And second, that's why I took the time to explain the tremendous margins that are available, so that lots of people can make money on this all the way out, and we can still tag along for the ride with a handsome return on it.
Thank you, David, for your answer. Thank you for the insight. And the same question to Liz.
Sure. Thanks. So our strategy involves really chasing after where the greatest market pull is, and that's largely driven by regulated jurisdictions with strong methane or emissions regulations. Canada, specifically Alberta and British Columbia and Saskatchewan, those have really strong policies around their emissions reductions, which create in turn a large driver for our product. We're following the US closely. There's obviously changes down there on the EPA federal level, but also on the state specific level. So that's a large opportunity for us. We need to ensure that our product is applicable across wide jurisdictions and different regulations. And so there's a lot of commonalities, is the good thing, amongst different emissions regulations and the types of data that you need to be managing. So it's really forming a strategy around, where's the largest pull, starting with Alberta, Canada, and then moving into different states that have strong regulations.
Thank you. And my last question, I'll start with David, and then to Liz, and then to Vicky. In the innovation to commercialization space, there's a significant amount of capital needed at each phase of that innovation to commercialization. Some companies give up and in the initial phase, some don't, and they do spend quite a bit of time looking for money rather than building the business. So my question is, why are you as a company uniquely positioned and qualified to succeed in this venture?
It's a one-of-a-kind. It is truly unique technology. The only other people that are working on this is Royal Dutch Shell. They don't have quite Winterhawk's R&D budget. That's a joke. And no, the challenge is well known. The need for another solution is well known. We're ahead of the curve. I'm more inclined to talk to groups like this than I am to talk to oil industry trade associations, simply because it is as I said earlier, a disruptive technology in the sense it's a real solution to a real problem. It's always been a problem. It's even more acute with ESG emissions. So we are it's both good and bad. That's a good question, Ernest, in a way. It's good to be sort of the only person in the space in a given field in some ways, and it's terrible in others because they say, who are you like? Well, we're like nobody. What does it do? And then so there's the opportunity, if you can keep it funded and get it through to the commercial stage, because the whole world is your oyster. The problem is when you're trying to capitalize it, particularly with a niche technology like this, both Vivian and Liz have simpler things to understand than ours. The problem is you do need sophisticated investors that understand the challenge. But fortunately, we're getting there.
Thank you. Now, same question to Liz.
Yeah, thanks, Ernest. So Arolytics is an expertise-based company. Our founding team has dozens of years behind us working really closely with the type of data and, building off analytics and working with and developing different technologies for this pain point. And so it's really just our background in working closely with this that is a key differentiator. We've been involved in a lot of kind of first ever type projects in Alberta as these emissions regulations are brand new as of, just last year. And so this space is just rapidly evolving, and we've been fortunate to establish ourselves as some of the experts in this space.
Thank you. Same question to Vicky.
Okay. Like Liz, I think the very, very most important thing is the team. Every single person involved with our company has had exits and understands this specific device field. So that is absolutely critical. But secondly, the timing is really right. We have no competition in that there is nobody else developing an antibiotic resistance device solution, and everybody knows it's needed. Then COVID comes. What COVID has done to the peritoneal dialysis field is very significant. Nobody wants to go to the hospital anymore. So peritoneal dialysis is taking off like it never has before worldwide. Those are the two reasons that we will succeed.
Thank you. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, David. And thank you, James. I don't have any more questions unless we have more time for some other questions. It's a pleasure to hear from you, what you're doing with technology and the impact of your technology that it's going to have on various economies, locally, regionally, and globally. And it's needed, and it's part of growing that label of Made in Canada solution that's going to have an impact in Canada, but around the world. So thank you for your contribution, and I wish all of you all the best of luck in delivering the solution based on the market pool. I know the industry will adopt it, but the power of a market pool is so important in this process. So thank you for the opportunity to learn from you and to also to get some insight on where you are going and how you're going to do it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ernest. And I'll just echo that exactly. David, Liz, Vicky, please, may you have continued success. Thanks for coming back to Tech Tuesday. You were selected for the best of winter for good reason, and that proved out today. Ernest, thanks so much for your time from serving time away from serving your technology clients. Obviously, you provided tremendous value to them, and thank you for your preparation today. You sent questions ahead of time, which is not often the case. So, really appreciate you getting the guests ready. And thank you for our attendees for your time today, and thank you to all the regulars that came to every Tech Tuesday almost every week since last July. We're not ending this series; we're just ending the season formally. So, what we're going to do is we're going to have some special shows throughout the spring and the summer. We'll come back in the fall with season 2, a little refreshed. I think if you talk about a pool, I think we've covered a lot of the technology companies that meet the criteria for this show, and certainly, if you want more, do you want to go back and watch the episodes? If you want to be informed of new ones, if you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe, hit that like button. Make sure that you get updated on everything that we're doing at the CSE. We love delivering this content. We love hearing from you. We love it when we have viewers, whether it's live or after the fact. It doesn't matter, but we love it when you guys show up. And I want to thank, most importantly, Mark Francis, who couldn't see it to the end. Unfortunately, the worst possible day for him to have a bad internet connection. But Mark, this was his project that he started with. This is his season. He hosted and did most of the gathering of all these companies. And to that, I want to give him my sincere thank you. And I'm sure you as an audience also appreciate what Mark has done here to bring all these great opportunities to your computer screen every Tuesday. So without further ado, I'm James. I'm with the CSE. Ernest and everyone else, Vicky, Liz, David, thank you again for joining us. If you want to go and talk to everyone who is here today in the back room, there are tables. We'll sit around for a few minutes and stoke up some conversation. And that's it. That was season 1 of Tech Tuesday. Let us know what you think about in the comments. What do you want us to preview or feature next season? And with that, we'll wish you a good afternoon. And thanks again, as always, for watching. Take care.